Hey guys, it's September 11th. Some of you may know exactly where you were 14 years ago and what you were doing when all the events took place. Some of you it hit home really hard. Some of you may not even have any recollection of what was going on because you weren't born, or you were just born, or you're too young to remember anything. But I've seen all through social media today people, looking back on what they were doing and where they were and how it made them feel. Well, me personally, I was in middle school at the time, and we heard the teachers talking about the World Trade Center tower had been hit by a plane. So it was on TV most of the day, and I get a call to the classroom, middle of the day probably, and I get told to go to the office. I had no idea what was going on. I get down there and I see both of my other siblings that were there, and then my mom walks in and she says, "We need to go, your dad's leaving." To fill you in, my dad's been a firefighter for 35 plus years and was on FEMA's military task force. So basically he got deployed and was going to New York. We had no idea what it was gonna consist of. It was the first major deployment they ever had, so we had to go home, say goodbye to him, and then he went to New York. He spent several weeks there. It was really hard on me and my family because it being the first big thing that we've ever experienced, we were sending him out there and not knowing if there was going to be another attack or if things were going to collapse or how stable everything was, and just it was like sending him to war. No disrespect to any military people, because I have a lot of family that's military and I understand that whole thing too, but I mean it was one of those type of things where you don't know what's going to happen. There's barely any communication, and it was really tough on us. He came home, made it home safely, and everything was fine. But it hits home with my family every year really hard, because we remember that, and having my dad been there firsthand and seeing the devastation that was just everywhere. I keep seeing the term never forget, and I see it every year, and I post it every year. But I think it's important to look at that phrase, never forget. This is one of the biggest tragedies this country's ever seen. And we say never forget, but what exactly are we saying when we say never forget? Here's what I see. When we say never forget, we're saying never forget the victims that were the innocent lives that were just doing their everyday jobs, whose lives were ripped from them. Never forget the families who were mothers and fathers and sons and daughters and grandparents whose relatives were ripped out of their hands because of these evil people. Never forget the first responders, the firefighters and the police officers that were running up the stairs to make sure the buildings were as clear as they could be, while everybody else trying to run out. Never forget the first responders and the search and rescue teams that came from all over the country and parts of the world came in and gathered with people they had never met before to search for people that they had no idea who they were, and put themselves in danger, and the dogs that searched tirelessly to help find people alive or help bring some closure to families. But what I think one of the biggest things that we should never forget, that I think seems to have been lost, is the unity that our country experienced in the wake of that event. 14 years ago, after everything happened, the country came together in a way that we haven't seen since. It didn't matter the person's race. It didn't matter their political party. It didn't matter their religion. It didn't matter their sexual preference. Everybody came together to help out their fellow man in their time of need. What we need to remember now, and never forget, is that part of it. It isn't about race or religion or political parties. It's about you and me as a person, helping each other out when we are needing to help each other out. The world's a much better place when everybody can be happy. And if you support your neighbor's going to support you. And that's just how it works. So I challenge all of you on the 14th anniversary of September 11th to never forget all the people that lost their lives and helped out, and everything that I've talked about already today. But also never forget about each other and about the unity that took place, and that now more than ever we need that to continue. Thank you, and God bless, and have a good rest of your weekend.